The frontal lobe is the part of the brain located in the front of the cerebral cortex that is involved with movement, decision-making, problem-solving, and planning. The prefrontal cortex in the frontal lobe is responsible for personality expression and the planning of cognitive behaviors. The premotor and motor areas of the frontal lobes contain nerves that control the execution of voluntary muscle movement. When cooking, it is important to plan accordingly to ensure that you have all the ingredients, equipment, and time needed to begin making your meal.
The cerebellum is located in the back of the brain and receives information from sensory systems, the spinal cord, and other parts of the brain. It relegates motor movements and voluntary movements such as posture, balance, coordination, and speech. So while sharpening knives that will be used in cooking, you use coordination to make sure you don't harm yourself. Hypothalamus is responsible for hormone production. This part of the brain controls the pituitary gland that releases hormones that help to regulate body temperature, thirst, hunger, and moods. The overall function of the hypothalamus is to maintain homeostasis. The hypothalamus sends the pituitary gland signals and tells it to release hormones to make the body aware that it is hungry. Your hunger is then satisfied when eating food. Amygdala is part of the limbic system and is involved with the processing of emotions and motivations. In humans, this brain structure is linked to fear, anger, and pleasure. The amygdala is also involved with the automatic responses associated with fear. When eating good food, your body reacts in positive ways, it becomes happier.
The hippocampus is a limbic system structure that is responsible for memory forming, organizing, and storing. It is particularly important in forming new memories and connecting emotions and senses, such as smell and sound, to memories. This comes into play when cooking because many people are able to memorize recipes. The recipe at first is formed in the hippocampus, and then once it is memorized, it gets stored into the other parts of the brain and becomes a long-term memory. The occipital lobes are positioned at the back region of the cerebral cortex and are the main centers for visual processing. When cooking, the images that the eyes receive are transferred to the occipital lobe to be processed and create the image of the food you're cooking.
Temporal lobe is part of the brain that is responsible for hearing and selective listening. This part of the brain helps people comprehend meaningful speech. The temporal lobe comes into play when you're cooking because you can hear if water is boiling over or if the timer goes off, and then act accordingly.